Hello, Lockdown Diaries day 25. Today you're going to talk about taking your own bike across America or to America. It was a question raised by Dean Roberts on yesterday's comments. He just wondered if I'd do a video on it, so I thought I would. So I've been across America on three trips across on motorcycles. The first one, 2012, on the Postie bike. So that was flying into New York with the bike, riding to LA, and then San Francisco, then Alaska, then riding back down to Canada and shipping the bike back home by boat. The second time was flying a GS 1200 into Las Vegas and spending sort of 5 weeks riding east to New York and then boating it back. And then the third time, 2018, was when I took a group of 12 riders or 11 riders plus me. We flew the bikes into New York and then rode across to LA, and then they were boated back home. We were supposed to be going in 2020 with another group of 12, which was postponed to 2021. And last weekend I cancelled that as well, as it just looks like it's going to be unlikely. So this is information perhaps for 2022. So you might have spotted in those three examples, each time the bikes were air freighted in and boated out. This seems to be the most common way of doing it, simply because flying a bike into America is far more reliable than boating it in, because you will have a nominated date when the shipping company or the freighting company has asked you to deliver the bike to them, and then they have it booked on a specific flight. It goes on a commercial jet rather than a cargo plane, and therefore you get given an exact arrival time that plane is going to land, and obviously they can even work it around your schedule. So if you say you've got a flight booked on the 28th of April one year, then they will make sure your bike flies on that date or even on that plane if they're able to. I use companies, I've used James Cargo before, and I've also used Motor Freight. So they're specialised vehicle shipping companies or freighting companies, and essentially they work with agencies around the world to facilitate bike shipping or car shipping to anywhere, literally anywhere in the world where there's a port or an airport. You can get your bike sorted, and they're sort of an agent, and like I say, they'll work with other agents to make it happen. You can fly your bike into pretty much any airport in America. New York, just obviously when you're doing a coast to coast, is the most obvious. I would say JFK puts you in a position where you've got to ride through a lot of urban areas or busy interstate to get out of it. If you can fly it into New York, it's probably better. When we flew the bike into Las Vegas, that was perfect, because Las Vegas is a far more compact place than, say, New York or San Francisco, and so you're very quick to get out into the clear roads and empty roads, really, straight into the desert. So Las Vegas is a very easy place to fly into. On the way back, the bikes generally come back on a boat simply because of cost. Bikes can fly into America on a commercial jet, which makes it quite affordable. On the way back out of America, they can't go on a commercial jet. They have to go on a cargo plane, and they end up going to mainland Europe and then going back into the UK, which sort of doubles the price. So to give you an example of price, normally to air freight a bike into America is sort of £1,500, give or take, a little bit of discrepancy based on bike size and whatnot. Maybe £1,400, and then to boat it back it's sort of £600, £700. So all in all, for a return, you're looking at £2,200 to fly it out and to boat it back. To air freight it back in, you would probably add another £1,000 onto that. Obviously, the benefit of paying that extra money is that the bike comes back straight away. Whereas if you boat it back from, say, LA on the west coast, it's got at least a 10-week journey coming back through the Panama Canal back to the UK. So it depends on how quickly you need the bike afterwards. But generally for price, that's how I've always done it. There are other options. Air Canada is the only airline where you can liaise directly with them, and they will air freight bikes in and out of Canada, only 3 airports: Montreal, Toronto and Vancouver. So if you're entering into Canada and going across Canada, or swinging down, I guess, into America and then back up into Canada, then that's one way of doing it. Certainly if you wanted to ride up to Alaska, then you could air freight in and out of Vancouver. They do it for sort of £850 each way, so about £1,700 return, so cheaper, and also you fly it back rather than boating it back. You get it even cheaper still, I believe, if you book a plane ticket, your plane ticket with Air Canada. So if you book yourself and the bike on, it's cheaper. To get a bike on a plane is actually very easy, and certainly very easy if you use one of the freighting companies that I've mentioned, Motor Freight, James Cargo. There's another one, Shipio. You simply take your bike down, fully loaded, everything that you need on it, the panniers, luggage, your jacket, your trousers. So you can literally put all your riding gear, all your camping gear, everything on the bike, and they mount it on a sturdy wooden base and then build a sturdy cardboard box around it, which takes into account screen and everything, so you don't have to take the screen off, there's nothing stacked above it. Fuel, you can leave fuel in it, less than a quarter of a tank. They advise that you don't have to disconnect the battery. The only thing they do stipulate is no aerosol containers, so i.e. no camping stove gas or sealed containers of oil or fuel. So actually very easy, very, not very stringent at all in what you can't take. You leave the key in the ignition, and when it arrives at the other end, it's ready to go. It's quite straightforward. In terms of paperwork, you don't need a carnet de passage for America, which makes it very popular and very easy to do. What you need is a letter of exemption from the Environmental Protection Agency, which if you use a freighting company, they will give you the address, or it's very easy to find. And you simply, and there's a template online, you write out a letter about what bike it is, how long you want to come for, and for what purpose. You email this department, and within a week they will email you back an exemption letter, which is what you need to give to the shipping company just to get the bike in. That doesn't cost anything, so there's no charge there. Obviously, you need your passport. Now, bear in mind, if you're going to America, if you've got a criminal record or conviction or even an allegation, I believe, you have to have an actual visa rather than an electronic visa. The electronic visa waiver program is very easy to get and I think free. I can't remember if there's a nominal charge or it's free. I forget, either £12 or free. And if you've got a criminal conviction, you have to go down to the embassy and have an application interview and get a proper visa. So just be wary of that. In terms of motorcycle insurance, it got very difficult with GDPR, which came in 2018, which was the Information Sharing or Information Protection Act that covered Europe and made it problematic for some American companies, I believe. And so the only underwriter who was offering policies on foreign bikes in America, which was Dairyland Insurance, they pulled the plug on that at very short notice and left a lot of people high and dry. There was nobody stepped into that gap in 2018 when I last went across, and so we used a Mexican broker called Seguro Gringo, which is still operational, and that gives you minimal legal cover for America, third party only, to a value of around $20,000. It's not great because if you hit someone, then the claim could easily quadruple, multiply that by 1,000, if you've seriously hurt anyone or whatever, and equally the bikes weren't covered. So it was a huge risk in 2018. Since then, Motorcycle Express, which is another carrier, they've stepped in and found an underwriter who will cover them. They used to be an agent for Dairyland, and now they've found their own underwriter. The company is run by a guy called Mike Mandel, who's very helpful and knowledgeable. And that will give you a better coverage on third party, and it will also cover the bike, and I think it might also include breakdown cover, which it used to do with Dairyland. The price has gone up. It used to be around £300 for a month, and now it's getting on for £500 to £600, and that's before COVID, so I don't know what that price is now, and I don't know I don't know what's going to happen, but that is very much the issue. There's some who say you can get Progressive Insurance, which is American provider, but it's a very grey area because they will issue you a policy, but when you press them on it, they will question whether you are actually an American citizen, and it's never been proven whether it would actually be effective if you actually needed it, if you actually needed to make a claim. Yes, you can pay and get a certificate of insurance, but whether it's worth anything in the event of an accident, people take that risk and some people don't. It's one of those. Health insurance, obviously recommended for America. I always use Navigator Travel Insurance, which has been a great provider of my own insurance. And then in Australia, we had a guy with a broken leg, and he was with Navigator, and they were exceptional in terms of getting him back and providing cover. So I'd certainly recommend them from experience. And breakdown cover, as I said, if you can't get it as part of the insurance, it is available. I just want to check the video's recording. Now, in terms of pros and cons of taking your own bike there, £2,200 or thereabouts plus the insurance, it's not cheap. But if you are going to go there to America for more than, let's say, 2 to 3 weeks, then the costs start making sense. So the problem with doing a coast to coast in America on a rental bike is that you will have to use Eagle Rider, and Eagle Rider really only allow Harley Davidsons to be ridden on a one-way rental. Eagle Rider are very good in allowing you to rent through them BMWs and Triumphs and Yamahas and Royal Enfields, but they're just an intermediary to the actual dealership that's renting those bikes out. So therefore, there's no one-way availability on any of the other brands other than Harley Davidson. So if you wanted to do a coast to coast on anything other than a Harley Davidson, forget it really. Also cost. When we had issues with the insurance on the bikes in 2018, I looked at taking a one-way rental on Harleys, and it was in the region of $6,000 by the time you'd added the insurance waiver. And so it was actually more expensive to fly in and rent Harleys one way than it was to ship our own in or air freight our own in with the insurance and everything. So that ruled out rental. If you're going for 2 weeks and you're flying into, say, Las Vegas, then I think it's a brilliant idea to rent a bike and to ride around that region where all the good riding is, around the four corners, and that would be cost effective. That's some of the European brands are very cheap, sort of $80 per day for Target 800s and Yamaha T7s, those sort of bikes, and Bonnevilles and actually Royal Enfield Himalayans can be rented for $49 a day, which is very cheap. So you could go for 2 weeks and it'll cost you maybe £1,200, £1,400 for the bike, and that's obviously a lot easier than taking your own. But you can't do a one-way coast to coast, and that is where taking your own benefits. In terms of buying a bike out there and selling it at the end, I guess it's an option if time is a luxury, and say you've got 6 months to sort a bike out in advance, to meet it when you get there, to organise it, to equip it, to pack it up how you want, to spend time at the end selling that bike. If you've got 6 months or 4 months, then it possibly might be worth it. But if you're on a 4-week window, I don't personally think you've got the time at either end to waste in buying and selling, unless you've got an agent or a friend or a relative in a location that can help you. There's also an issue with registering the bike in your name as a non-American citizen, which is dependent upon state, and I don't know the exact states which are best, I've got to be honest. I've never done it, but if you go on advrider.com, there will be people who will have an answer to that. For me, it just wasn't an option. When I took my GS 1200 across, people said, "Why didn't you buy one out there?" Well, when you're making payments on the bike you've got in the UK, it's not cost effective to go out and buy another bike in America. It's cheaper for me just to take the one I've got and pay the $2,000 or whatever. It's also good that it's a bike that you equip it how you want, you service it before you go, you put on the tyres that you want, and you remedy any problems that you think that bike might have along the way. Also, the benefit over renting a bike by taking your own is that if you drop it, scuff it, then there's no comeback from anyone. It's very easy to damage a bike, whether it be a scuff panel or you bend the bars or you crack a panel or whatever. Very easy, and the excess on bikes is very expensive. You can get a zero waiver on the Harleys through Eagle Rider, but all the other bikes won't allow you to do a zero excess. Certainly the bikes that they suspect are going to be used on trails or dirt bikes or dirt roads. So for me, if you're wanting to get off the beaten track and explore America, then it has to be on your own bike or a bike that you bought out there. Renting one out there, unless you've got the pockets, deep enough pockets to pay the excess waiver, it's no good. But so that's it for me. Taking your own bike is a really good thing to do. It gives you a great experience and sense of achievement in having the bike freighted in, and then coming back to you at the end with the stickers and the memories that come back with the bike. I think it really adds a sense of adventure to it. It is harder work, but because you've got more legwork to do. But I think by using an agency at this end, certainly it's very straightforward. The only issue is obviously at the other end, you've not got the agent operating on your behalf unless you employ someone to do that, like an arrivals broker sort of thing. So when the bike flies into an airport, say it flies into New York, the process is a little bit convoluted, I'll be honest, and it can be daunting if you've never done it before or the first time you do it. You get given paperwork before you fly, and then when you arrive, you have to take a taxi or a bus or whatever to the cargo area of the airport, which is normally a long way from the passenger terminals. And you'll find the specific carrier that freighted your bike. So normally with most agencies they use Virgin Atlantic. So you'd find the Virgin Atlantic officers. You would go in there and they would stamp your paperwork and they would give you a document that you then needed to take to the customs department or customs agency. Then you would have to backtrack across the airport to the customs department. And depending on who you had on that desk, whether they understood the process of temporary importing a vehicle, which is what you're effectively doing. Sometimes it can be very easy to do, and sometimes it can be, you've got to persuade them or explain to them exactly what, and then they might have to go and get assistance to double check, and it can be stressful. It was certainly stressful when there were 12 bikes arriving at JFK, and you're sort of riding and resting, relying on that person on that desk knowing what to do and how to do it. And once they've done that, then you take the paperwork back to the company, the freighting company, Virgin Atlantic. They stamp your paperwork. You pay, I think, a $70, $80 release fee, and then they'll say, "Well, where do you want your box, your container?" And you'll say, "Well, if I'm okay to unpack it here, that'd be great." And I've never had a problem yet. And they'll set the stillage to one side, and they'll lend you a crowbar if you've not packed one, and then you crack open the crate. And this is really the exciting part. You crack open the crate, the box falls flat on either side, the bike is stood there, you undo the ratchet straps, the bike comes off the stand, you put your helmet on, keys in the ignition, fire it up, and away you go, and your adventure begins riding across America. And I think that's a great sense of adventure. The sense of being on a UK plated bike in America is great, and just certainly going on a coast to coast, you get the sense that there are so many routes and options of going across America. I think you could go across America 1,000 times and not get bored. I've a tendency to follow a kind of a predictable route. If I was going east to west, I would go down through the Appalachian Mountains, riding the Blue Ridge Parkway, Tail of the Dragon, etc. Then down into Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, and then across Texas to get that done with quite quickly, and then into New Mexico, and then come up into Colorado, Utah, Nevada, Arizona, and then into the coast. I have done a more northerly route on the postie bike, and I prefer the more southerly route. In terms of season, I'd go shoulder season. It's very hot through the desert areas in the summer, obviously, but it can also get very cold on the coast very quickly. So I like that sort of September riding season. I think that's a good compromise. Obviously, you're going to get heat and you're going to get cold, but not huge extremes apart from, say, Death Valley, where it's going to hit maybe 45 degrees, 48 degrees. But if you go in the early hours of the day, it's not too bad. Just looking in terms of solo, group riding, or as a pair, I think out of the three, because the postie bike was solo. When I went on the GS, it was with my wife. We got married out there, and with the group, it was 12 of us. Each has got merit. There's no right or wrong. With a group, people found their feet and then did their own thing for a day or the day or even a few days, and then met up using WhatsApp, so that worked nicely. With a pair, it's obviously lovely to share it with your partner, and on your own, obviously, you've got the flexibility to do exactly what you want when you want to do it. There is no right or wrong, but America is a very easy place to travel. We talk about planning and preparation, but I think in America, if you've got a tent or a credit card for a motel, you're never going to struggle for a place to sleep or a place to eat or even help if you break down. It's a very easy place to travel with an immense variety of terrain and scenery, which I don't think you could ever get bored of. And the people have always been fantastic. I've never had a problem in America, whether it's people, all the members of the group who've had maintenance issues or bike problems. We've always been helped out immensely. Whether it was Adrian with his puncture, or Dave with his broken down KLR 650. We couldn't have asked for better help out there. So it's not a daunting place at all, and I would certainly recommend it. If you've got any questions on shipping your own bike that I've not covered there, that was a bit of a scattergram roundup of things to consider, but if there's anything I've not touched upon, just message me. In terms of total budget, I always say £6,000 all up, which is not cheap, I accept that, but if you've got a £12,000 bike that's sat there, then you could easily sell that and buy a £6,000 bike, which you'll still get a very good bike, and spend the rest going across America. So it depends on your priorities. You know, you don't need a great bike if you're obviously going to do a lot more dirt riding. There's a Trans-America Trail if you wanted to do that. I'd certainly recommend a more dirt-friendly bike, a smaller dirt-friendly bike. But, you know, get off the interstate, and that's out of the three bikes, the Posties, the GS and the Himalayan that I've took across. Probably the Himalayan is the best compromise, or that size of bike, because you can get off and explore roads that you don't know where we're going to take you, or tracks that you don't know where we're going to take you. If you went on a big GS, you'd be probably a bit restricted because of apprehension as to if you're going to get stuck. So a bike less than 200 would be my favourite. One with a bit more power than the Himalayan for the highway would be good, but the Himalayan was a good compromise on that particular trip. Although if you're going two up, then the GS 1200 made perfect sense. The Postie was good because it forced me to explore the nooks and crannies of America that you would otherwise miss. So that's it. Just a quick website to mention who do them. The Lost Adventure. They take the Harleys back from Florida every sort of spring or late winter. Take them back to LA on a guided trip or a semi-guided trip, and that's quite cheap. The Lost Adventure, if you want to check them out. But there's plenty of companies out there. Unchained Tours is somebody else who does it like me, where he just flies you in and helps you across as much as you want, but doesn't hold your hand. And then obviously there's Eagle Rider and all those tours that will hold your hand every step of the way. But I would say if you've got the gumption and a little bit of confidence to do this on your own or as a self-guided trip, I would do that. From what I've seen of the guided tours, where it's like a blow a whistle and we're stopping for a toilet, blow a whistle and we're back on the bikes, ride a bit, right? I think that people enjoy it, and I'm not saying it's not a good thing, but if you have got that taste of wanting to explore a little bit on your own, then I think they could be quite restrictive or constrictive, those kind of fully guided tours where you don't have any freedom to do your own thing. But there's options for everyone. So that's it. America, any questions, give me a shout. Alright, cheers, bye. Just to quickly add on that, I didn't mention it with regards to the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency certificate, but that allows the bike to stay in America for 1 year, and you aren't technically or officially allowed to leave that bike in America and fly out and leave it. So you should always be with it in America. So once you've shipped it in, you have a year, and you're supposed to notify them when you leave. So far, I've never been chased up, I've never been checked, I've never had any correspondence with the EPA about the bikes that I've shipped in and shipped out. So I think it's possibly slightly a toothless threat, but it is something to bear in mind that a year is the maximum time in America. Also, just to quickly say, if you are planning a bigger trip, don't think you can dip in and out into Canada and Mexico to renew your visa, like I do a visa run, because they are savvy to that, and you have to go like at least one country beyond. So you'd have to go to Guatemala or whatever. I don't know what country's beneath Mexico, but you'd essentially have to go there. So they are wise to that. So it's just a few extra things to consider.